I'm tracking. We have two budget committee meetings today. Okay. I'm going to call to order the Westland Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee meeting. It's Tuesday, May 27th. And the Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee will come to order. And the first item of business is for me to pass this gavel off to the Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair. And I guess we can just start the meeting with a little around the table just to identify ourselves for the record. So I'm Roy Belasowski, the mayor.
Ann Fraser, Budget Committee.
Carol Bright.
Rick Larson, Budget Committee.
Kevin Bonington, City Council.
Brian Beadle, Budget Committee.
John Williams, City Manager.
Lauren Bright, Help Finance Director.
Nikki Cablea, Budget Committee.
Leo Groner, City Council.
Mary Baumgardner, City Council.
And those online, would you identify yourself for the record? Oh, I think you're on mute, Abby.
And I certainly am. Abby Farber, Budget Committee member.
Thank you. And so we will now move to the election of the Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair for the Redevelopment Agency. And we will entertain any nominations. I'd prefer it be a citizen member just because, and maybe it doesn't have to be this way, but it could, the person who's the chair of this redevelopment agency will nominate you as well for the chair of the Budget Committee meeting. So for the sake of continuity. So would anybody like to volunteer themselves to chair the meeting for our citizen members?
I'll nominate Richard Larson.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to nominate Richard Larson for the chair of the Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee. Mr. Larson, are you willing to do that role?
Yes.
Okay. So I will on that. I guess we'll call the roll on that, and then we'll do a vice chair since the motion's been made and seconded.
All right, Councilor Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Councilor Bonington. Yes. Sorry, I don't have your name right now.
Yes.
Name either, I'm sorry.
A board member Kobliha?
Yes.
Councilor Groner,
Yes.
Councilor Baumgartner.
Yes.
And then Abby, do you vote yes or no on the chair? Okay, she votes yes.
Lip reading, but okay.
And then I have to vote, so I'm going to vote yes, and then,
Ann Fraser, yes.
okay. And so everybody has voted. Okay, thank you very much. So congratulations, Ms. Larson. We really appreciate you being willing to do it. I would have done it, but we'd like to have a citizen member do it just for that. There's a ceremonial gavel. Okay.
So the next order of business on the agenda is to approve the May 20th.
Vice.
Oh, we need a vice chair.
I'm sorry. So we need to have a nomination for vice chair. Do I hear a nomination?
I'm going to nominate Brian Beadle to be vice chair of the budget committee.
Okay, I accept.
Second.
There is a nomination and a second for Brian Beadle for vice chair of the budget committee. Any discussion? Mr. Digby, would you call? Okay.
Ann Fraser,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson.
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Mary Baumgardner,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski.
Yes.
And Abby Farber.
Yes.
Okay, now the next order of business is to approve the budget committee meeting minutes from May 20, 2024. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from May 20th, 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Can you please call the roll?
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Nikki Kolbaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner,
Yes.
Rory Listowski.
Yes.
Anne Fraser,
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think for the budget committee meeting.
For the
I would be happy to, and congratulations on your election. We're looking forward to working with you over the next week. Members of the Redevelopment Agency Budget Committee, we put this first on the agenda. It should be pretty quick, so we thought we would get through it and then move on to the city budget, which is obviously a much more complicated affair. The Redevelopment Agency is a separate organizational structure from the city of Westland. And so it has its own budget, its own budget committee. We need to do this entire process. It's replicated for the agency. The Redevelopment Agency was created in June of 2023 by the City Council. And the goal of the agency and of the district is to stimulate redevelopment in the Westland waterfront area, generally stretching from the Arch Bridge to the pond area between the Willamette River and Willamette Falls Drive generally, also inclusive of the Willamette downtown neighborhood and across the freeway in the commercially zoned properties across there. And the purpose of a tax increment finance district, purpose of this redevelopment agency, is to provide infrastructure for projects that can revitalize these areas, stimulate redevelopment in keeping with community goals. We did a one-year budget and now we're proposing a two-year budget, but the budget's very simple. All we have proposed in the budget for the next 2 years is that we continue to accrue funds and wait until the waterfront vision plan is completed, which is going to have a project list in it. And once we know what the vision is for that area, then the council and the agency working together along with budget committees can think about projects. And the way tax increment finance is generated is by when tax value rise, the rise in tax value goes to the agency and must be used for a very specific set of projects. There's only certain types of things you can spend money on. And we have a redevelopment plan, which has a list of potential infrastructure projects. And the main goal of a tax increment finance district is to build infrastructure. We're expecting about $437,000 in TIF revenue for the 2-year budget period. We are recommending not, as I mentioned already, not spending any of that money on projects. We could, should the council, working with the agency, see a need for projects, this could be done. But right now, we're not proposing any specific projects, again, because the waterfront plan hasn't been completed. We have 2 funds. We have a general fund, which accounts for administration costs, which are very, very incidental at this point. Construction projects, property purchases, and we have a debt service fund that accounts for the property tax revenue and payments on debt. But as I said, just accruing it. So the budget is very simple, just a couple of pages. Lauren and I would be happy to answer any questions, but that's pretty much an overview of this. The way we have always seen this district is that it is a tool in this community toolbox to achieve our vision. Really, it's not going to ever have enough money to fund all of the infrastructure needed in this area, but it could be a match for things. It could fund some smaller infrastructure. It can be a part of a puzzle. So, for example, if we were to come across grants that are possible and they need some infrastructure money from this community, perhaps the TIF district could fund those. But it's going to take some time and growth will be small at first and then keep accelerating. I think the fact that we have 437,000 projected for these 2 years is really good news. And it shows that we are starting to accumulate some power in this district. So that is my budget message, no fancy slideshow, but Lauren and I are happy to answer questions.
Counselor Gruner, I see you have a question?
Yes, please, Ms. Brackoff, could you clarify the role of those on the last 4 pages, the spreadsheets, what the distinction is between them, what they represent?
Absolutely. Yes. So the first one, which is on page 7, is the budget at a glance. That's the total of all the funds, showing the resources and the requirements, so the revenues and the expenditures and what's in our reserves. The next page, on page 8, is very similar. It's also a summary of all funds, but it's just by the total of each fund, the revenues and the requirements. So it's broken out a little bit differently. The following page is the Urban Renewal General Fund, which is showing, as the city manager mentioned, the debt proceeds, if there are any, and then the payment of administrative costs, if there were any. And then the last page here is the Urban Renewal Debt Service Fund, which is accounting for the property taxes coming in and any debt service on, if we have any debt service, if we have any.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Hearing none, our choice is to make a motion to approve or to move on. I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
If we're ready, I have a motion.
I'm ready.
I move that the Budget Committee of the Westland Redevelopment Agency approve the biennium budget for the period beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2027 in the amount of $674,000 and approve to certify to the County Assessor for the Westland Plan area a request for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes under Section 1C Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, is there discussion? No discussion. Would you call the roll?
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Mayor Bielostowski,
Yes, thank you.
Ann Frazier,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
and Abby Farber.
Is there any further business for the Renewal Agency Budget Committee?
There's no further business, and Mr. Digby informed me before the meeting that he'll need a couple of minutes to end this meeting recording and then start the second one, just
Okay.
just for the chairs.
All right. So I declare the meeting adjourned.
Good luck.
Well, there are cookies back there.
Yeah. Probably have to say. What's that? Knocking. Both. For the charter. Yeah. And we're saying do it, so that's doing the chair and the vice chair at the same time, so that.
Yeah, we'll nominate.
I'm ready whenever you. Hold on.
Okay, we are ready to go, streaming live to the community again, so I'll call to order this Budget Committee meeting for the city of West Lynn. And the first item of business is to approve the agenda, which looks good to me. And so I would entertain a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda for the May 27th, 2025 Budget Committee meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the Budget Committee meeting. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, then we'll just call the roll on this.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski,
Yes.
Ann Fraser,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. The agenda is approved, and I will, now we're going to move to election of the Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair, and I will make the nomination. We're going to have the same officers from the redevelopment agency do the Budget Committee meeting here. So I'll nominate Richard Larson as the chair and Brian Beadle as the vice chair of the West Lynn Citizens Budget Committee.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to nominate Richard Larson as the chair and Brian Beadle as the vice chair of the City Budget Committee. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. One more time, call the roll tonight.
I got it. Kevin Bonington,
Yes.
Brian Beadle,
Yes.
Nikki Koblaha,
Yes.
Leo Groner,
Yes.
Mary Baumgartner,
Yes.
Rory Bielostowski,
Yes.
Ann Fraser,
Yes.
Carol Bright,
Yes.
Richard Larson,
Yes.
Abby Farber.
Okay, thank you. I will pass this over to Richard and we will continue on with the good meeting. Thank you. Thanks for volunteering to be the chair.
Okay, are there public comments in this?
Yes. Brad Hallquist?
Okay, and then I believe the policy is it 3 minutes that we ask that the comments be limited to? Hello,
We've got three minutes and we've got a timer over here that kind of runs down.
if you just state your name and city of residence.
All right. Okay, I thought I'd hold it. I'm Brad Holquist. I'm president of Historic Willamette Main Street. Wanted to begin thanking you all for the ongoing support you've shown our organization over the years. Your partnership has played a vital role in helping us strengthen the heart of West Lynn. We're here tonight with a request that's higher than we've asked for in the past, and we recognize this isn't reflected in the current version of the city budget. We understand that the complexities you face in balancing the needs across departments, but we also believe our work contributes meaningfully to the economic activity, community identity, and overall livability. This increased request reflects both the momentum we're building and the increased demand for the hands-on kind of community-driven work that we do. We're not asking lightly. We see a path forward where we can do even more for the city together. Thank you for your consideration, and we're happy to continue conversation in whatever way is most helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Hollenbeck?
Pardon. Hi. Good evening, members of City Council and the Budget Committee. I'm Rebecca Hollenbeck, and I'm Executive Director of Historic Willamette Main Street. I hate reading from things, but I wanted to make sure I got all my thoughts out tonight. So thank you for your continued support. It has allowed us to preserve the character of the Willamette Business District while creating programs and partnerships that serve the entire West Lynn community. We truly appreciate the $40,000 per year currently included in the proposed budget and respectfully ask you to consider increasing this amount. Our original request this year was for $70,000 per year. I want to be clear, we do not rely solely on city funds to operate. I've heard that in the past, and I just wanted to clear that up. In fact, the city support made up about 29% of our total income last year. We work hard to diversify our funding through donations, grants, events, and sponsorships. Since the last budget cycle, we've increased the number of donors by 100% and the number of sponsors by 75%. We've also launched a formal sponsorship program this year that will take time to fully develop, but we believe that this will reduce the amount of future city funding in the future. So, and I have copies of that if anybody would like to take a look at them. It also explains a little bit more about our program for those that are not aware of it. But that said, costs have gone up significantly on everything from insurance and supplies to services that support our programs. At the same time, small businesses are under more pressure than ever and need the kind of support we provide to help them stay visible, connected, and viable. We also understand that you're tasked with balancing many priorities across the city. Our goal tonight is to invite you to see our request as a shared investment in local economic resilience and community identity. The funding we requested is tied directly to our required participation in the Oregon Main Street and Main Street America networks, which mandate that we have a full-time executive director, a physical office, continuing education opportunities, among other things. Through partnerships like the Bike Kiosk collaboration with the Westland Arts and Culture Commission and Oregon Corrections Enterprises, we continue to extend the impact of your investment far beyond our organization. Thank you again for your time, your consideration, and your continued partnerships in helping Willamette and Westland thrive. I just want to make a note that we do have board members here and business owner here to add their support to our program tonight. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Ruth Hopper.
Hello, Ruth Offer. I'm Westland resident and I'm currently treasurer for Historic Willamette Main Street. So money is kind of important and pressing on my mind related to it. I did send an email on April 24th that sort of laid out my involvement with the group. I was the president of the neighborhood association at the time that the city came to us and said, hey, Main Street's a really cool idea. What do you think? And we went with it. And through all sorts of different ups and downs, we are now at the point where we've gone from being just a designated on up to being our now fully accredited Main Street. As Rebecca said, there are things that are necessary for us to remain at that position. So we've got this new, pretty robust sponsorship program that we're working on. Since this has come out, we've had one committed, and this was just, we sent it out last week, and we've got many who just need to sign on the line. But the money we're asking for covers salaries, and that would be Rebecca. We have market manager and a assistant program manager too. And if we don't get the funding we need as the treasurer, I'm looking at where we're going to cut, and that's salary. So we would need to cut events and programs as well. So we gave you a request that we thought was what we needed, and that's why we did it, not to do anything more than fill what we needed. So thank you very much for considering our request.
Thank you for your comments.
Robin May.
Hello, is it on? Yeah, okay. Respected board members and city leaders and budget committee. My name, I am apologizing. I'm going to read because I'm not a public speaker. Come to my shop anytime and I'll speak to you for hours, one-on-one, but public speaking is not my thing. So my name is Robin May and I'm the owner of World Hearts Fair Trade Retail Shop located at 1833 Willamette Falls Drive in the historic Willamette Business District. I have sent my full letter of support to you regarding historic Willamette Main Street grant funding in a previous email, which I hope you have had time to read, as well as my lengthy background on how I ended up in historic Willamette with my business. I respectfully urge you to increase the proposed funding in the upcoming budget, as the amount listed is not only below the needed request, but also less than what was allocated in the previous two-year full cycle. With rising costs on virtually everything around us, your continued support is now more critical than ever. Historic Willamette generates a significant portion of their operating income through event fundraising, donations, sponsorships, and in-kind business contributions, along with thousands and thousands of volunteer hours that greatly reduce the need for additional paid staff. The grant funding request is essential to covering the organization basic needs, as Rebecca mentioned, such as rent for a small office space and our salary of our executive director. In efforts to build other income revenues, we have launched the sponsorship program, which you have a packet of. And as of today, we have one signed group on that and more in the works. As a business owner in West Linn, I deeply appreciate your continued support of Historic Willamette and hope you recognize the direct positive impact this organization has on businesses throughout our community. Without the events, markets, and design projects and more that Historic Willamette organizes, I fear our local business economy will begin to decline. And I'm sorry, I can get pretty emotional about that. Every day I see firsthand the value that Historic Willamette brings in driving foot traffic and tourism, not only to the Willamette area, but to all of West Linn. At the same time, I see local businesses in nearby cities, many of whom I knew the owners personally, being forced to close their doors. The current economic climate is challenging, and now more than ever, we all need to invest in what's working. I'm a member of many business organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce for West Linn and Oregon City, as well as many networking groups and nonprofits. And I can guarantee that no other organization comes even close in comparison to the value that Historic Willamette has brought to our businesses. This is why I choose to support the organization financially as a sustaining donor and sponsor, as well as dedicating many hours as a volunteer on the board of directors as vice president, the outreach committee chair, and serving on promotion and market committees. And yes, I'll still running my business. Your continued support and commitment to Historic Willamette Main Street is essential to keeping our local economy strong and our community vibrant. Thank you for your service and to our community.
Thank you very much.
No further comments?
No further comments? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to thank the members from Historic Willamette Main Street for coming tonight. And for the budget committee members, just so you all are aware, as you probably are, on page 76 and 77 of the budget binder is a non-departmental fund, and that's where this particular item is located. And I think, so just so you all know, it's on the agenda to talk about the non-departmental fund. It's item J, so it might be a little bit of time until we get there, but we're going to talk about this and your request I think this evening if we get to it. So thank you for coming, and we appreciate all you do for Main Street. We recognize it, and we'll see what we can do with regard to the city funding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Williams, would you like to present the budget message for the city of West Linn?
Thank you, sir. I would be proud to do that. Dylan's going to pull it up, and I will tell some jokes while we do. Here we go. Okay, so the grand tradition of American democracy, the budget process, right? You have all heard me say this is just about the most important thing we do. It's the foundation for everything we do. And what I love about it is that our budget is 100% transparent. The decisions are made transparently. Any spending over $250,000 is approved by the city council. We have an online budget app dashboard, lost the word there for a second, that allows anyone on our staff or anyone in the community to click down into funds and see how the spending is going, see how the revenues are going. We run a remarkably transparent budget process, and it's important. This is how our community can understand what we're doing, what our priorities are, and how we spend the tax fee that we get. And so I am just going to do a very brief overview of the budget. Put that over there, maybe. No? All right. I'll point this at you. And you point here are a couple of themes, and I won't take more than the 15 minutes. I'll probably take less than the 15 minutes that you've allotted me on the calendar. Talk just a little bit about the process and the document. I know all of the budget committee members and council members, all of you have spent time with this document, so I won't belabor that. And also, most of the people in this room are the ones that put the budget together, so they don't need to hear me go through the budget document. But there may be people watching on TV who aren't sure what this is and how we do it. So just really briefly, we'll talk about the process, we'll talk about the organization of the document, including the fund consolidation. Lauren and I will explain what that is. Talk a little bit about the big picture revenues and costs that we're seeing. It wouldn't be a meeting about budget unless I talked about the property tax situation in West Lynn. It's a passion of mine. Talk a little bit about personnel. We have 2-year city council priorities that were approved earlier this year. We'll talk a little bit about how those are funded in this budget. Just a light touch on some of the major capital, and then why it matters. There we go. Okay, so this is our first budget meeting, but we have been working on this. People in this room, including the department staff behind us, have been working on this since late last year, really. That's when Lauren sends out the initial assignments and spreadsheets to all of us, and we start working on it. All of that led to the printed and the online document we have. We have scheduled 3 budget committee meetings tonight, Tuesday and Monday, tonight, Thursday and Monday if needed. And the budget committee provides a recommendation to the city council for action. Obviously, if you need more time, more meetings, that can be arranged. Our experience in recent years, it's taken about 2 or 3 meetings to go through all of the department funds and have a good conversation, including talking about requests that come in from our community members. The document is laid out, I think, extremely well, extremely clearly. We will talk about the consolidation and how that's reflected in the document. We have these nice handy tabs. Everything is pretty easy to find, I think. I do need my reading glasses for some of the pages, but that's okay. Really the big change in this document from previous documents is that we have consolidated some funds. We had the library, parks, planning, and public safety were all in their own funds in the past. And these have all been consolidated into the general fund. And the reason for that is the vast majority of revenues that these funds take advantage of are flexible revenues. They're really general revenues in the sense of the term. And we had these multiple funds in previous years. We've had them for some time. Not entirely sure why they're created, but they, in our view, made the budget document more complex and made the choices seem a little bit different than they actually are. So our allocation of the general flexible funds into each of those budgets could make it look like public safety was running a little high and had extra money, or planning is a little low. But really, these are all general service functions of the city of West Lynn. They should be budgeted together, and they should be considered together by you as you're thinking about prioritization of funding. And so as we talk about each of those specific funds this evening, you'll be seeing them located in 2 places in the budget document. And we have a general fund section, and these are now added into that general fund section. We also formally had, so if we go back and find that they had their own tabs in previous years. Budget law requires us to keep track of funds, keep track of things in the same manner for a couple of years, a couple of budget cycles. And so we need to show them in those places because of their historical existence, and we need to show them in the new place. So I think Lauren's done a fantastic job, and the finance team illustrating that. We'll show you that in a couple of places. But you see in these salmon-colored tabs, columns, reflecting the movement of those funds. One thing that we do want to note, and we'll talk about in each of these, is that we do have some dedicated funds allocated to each of these functions. It's very important that we be able to show the public, the folks that pay the bills for these sections, that we are using those funds as intended. So we get a countywide library revenue. It's important that we show that we are using that money for library. In fact, we are using much more than that for library. Parks is the same. We have a parks maintenance fee that funds our staff, but we also put general fund money into the parks department. So we'll show how that works. So that consolidation is an important structural change in this document. In the budget message, we talk a little bit about some key revenue and cost issues. And we'll be seeing these at various places in the budget. These are just a couple of interesting ones that we thought to call out. Our liability insurance, for example, is up 15%. And that's numbers that are given to us by the pool that we're in. It's not so much about our own activities as a city, it's more about the condition of insurance and the overall pool that we're in. But it's a significant cost and it is rising. We have labor contracts that are committed to, and we are trying to do our best to pay all of our employees across the entire agency competitive wages so that we can have retention and improvement. But those increase in revenue in costs certainly have an impact, and we'll talk a little bit about those in the individual budgets. Utility rates, that's another interesting one. Power costs up 18%, just like at my house. The city uses a lot of power in some functions, and that has an impact in some of our departments. These are just a sample of what I described 2 years ago as revenues not keeping up with costs. So where our costs are not capped, many of our revenues are capped. And so property taxes are limited, as we'll talk about in a second. And we'll talk about fees and charges when we get to that part of the agenda as well. You've all heard me talk before about our permanent property tax rate. I always talk about this as the biggest secret that nobody knows. Everyone expects that in West Linn, because our tax bill, property taxes are significant, and it's a big chunk of money that we all pay every year if you own a home. But actually, the chunk that goes to the city of West Linn is much smaller than in other communities. About 13 cents on your tax dollar goes to the city of West Linn to pay for those valued general government functions, police, planning, city manager. All of those things that people know and love are funded with a very small amount of tax relative. And that makes our financial situation challenging. We'll be looking a little bit about at how this budget looks a couple of years out. But this is just, I think, a great illustration, and we'll show a different version of that in a second. Back one, please. There we go. And just a reminder that our tax base is very, very predominantly residential. All of the yellow zoned or the yellow and orange is residential zoning in the city of West Linn. We have a very narrow strip of industrial, and we have some commercial sectors. But we have very few commercial and industrial areas. In fact, our one industrial business has unfortunately closed since we last reviewed a budget. And I always just show this slide of the city of Tualatin, and other similar cities are similar. All of that blue is industrial zoning in the city of Tualatin. We've all driven out Tualatin Sherwood Road. That is incredibly valuable to diversify a city's tax base. And West Linn, with that focus on residential, it just makes us, it just limits our abilities. So all of that is why we have fewer employees per capita in our general fund departments than many of our peer cities do. Here, look, it's working, and now it's working. Okay, stop looking. There we go. Thank you, Dylan. This chart here does a really nice job of showing, and it's a lot. I won't present every piece of it. The bottom line is on the right side. This is an attempt to take out the impact of having a fire department, which some cities do. And so the right line shows you the right columns show you the city's effective tax rate per capita, making everything equal for fire departments or no fire departments. And so you look at the city of West Linn there with Gladstone, other cities earning hundreds of dollars more per capita, which really has an impact when you think about 28,000 residents. And so a whole bunch of things come together to make the city of West Lynn's financial situation much more limited than some of our peer cities. But our community has very high expectations. There's a high quality of life here in West Lynn. Folks think that they're paying a lot and they expect a high level of service. And so this is just, I think, a mismatch in a lot of people's brains, the reality of this. And it's very important as we're going through. We'll be talking some about utilities and utility rates. And the only purpose of this slide is just to show you that we are very middle or bottom of the pack when it comes to utility rates. Adding everything in, we're still towards the bottom. So we are managing our utilities extremely efficiently, and we are providing great services for the amount of revenue that we receive. And all of that leads to a discussion of personnel. Each of these folks, as they come up, will be talking about personnel in their departments. And from some of them, you may be hearing the challenges they're experiencing or goals that they have in the personnel area. Out of 140 employees, what we have in this budget is 1.6 additional FTE, almost all of which is coming from dedicated enterprise funds, not general fund. We have one new FTE in building and engineering planning. It's only 25% general fund, and it's an admin assistant position. The other additional employees are little bits and pieces on existing employees that are maybe adding a few hours to their job. City Council has heard me talk about this enough and heard from community members enough that in recent meetings, the council has asked us to develop a list of needs that are unmet in the proposed budget. And we'll be looking forward to talking a little bit about that in the course of this. And this budget process may be a launch for some kind of conversation if you all are interested in that. And we have some ideas there. I mentioned the West Lynn City Council priorities. These are them. As we go through the document, you'll be hearing how each of these are addressed in the various departments. I listed about a page of that in the budget message. I won't go through it in detail, but I will say that we are doing our best to deliver on all of the council's priorities. And in areas that there is not existing dedicated funding, council's having a conversation about that. And the main example there is transportation, safety, and funding. This is probably the #1 thing that the city council has been hearing from folks coming in and testifying on Monday nights. And the council is working to evaluate project priorities and to look at funding options that other communities have for pedestrian safety around the city. There is, as I said, we'll get into each of these as we move through the budget tonight and Thursday. Major capital construction. We'll be talking mostly about this on Thursday night. You'll be hearing about the city operations facility, the new facility on Salama Road and how that's funded. We'll talk some about the I-205 water line, our favorite topic. I hope to have it included in every budget forever as long as I work. That would be ideal. We have an annual road program we'll talk a little bit about, a water line replacement program. I just mentioned the pedestrian safety. We'll talk a little bit about that. This is not a huge capital construction budget that you have in front of you. This is sort of a maintain and repair, with the exception of the city operations facility, which is probably the largest project that the city has ever undertaken, and possibly the most needed project we've ever undertaken. I showed this slide 2 years ago, and when I looked at it last week, I thought, hey, that's a pretty good slide. All I did was change out one of the pictures and the budget cover. And the reason I have this slide in there is to remind me to say that the budget is important, but it's important because of people. It's important because of this community. What our city does, the reason I do the job I do, is because I love so much what a city can do for a community. When you think about parks, when you think about building a new Main Street construction project, so we have tons of sidewalk space so that our private and nonprofit partners can run events on there. When you think about gathering at the Arch Bridge like we did a couple of years ago, it's about the people of this community. And we are at this local government level we really are the easiest government for folks to connect with, to understand. And we are the government that I think is the best at doing activities and programs that communities need. So you're going to be hearing from our librarians. They'll probably talk a little bit about the thousands of people that come in and what kinds of activities they do. You'll be hearing from our capital construction about rebuilding water lines that people have safe drinking water. All of it is about the 27,500 people who live in this community. I think I can easily look around this room. Why everyone does what they do is because they love doing this stuff, right? And we all are in public service for a reason. We all think this is important. And another thing we have in common is we appreciate our volunteers that spend time making it all work and ensuring that we are delivering the things that this community wants. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Every time I meet with you on the budget, I am amazed by your willingness and appetite to sit down and read a 150-page document and understand it and come to meetings armed with questions. We are looking forward to presenting what we do to you over the next couple of nights. And I may actually use my whole 15 minutes, I'm sorry. But it's important stuff. So we are, next slide, I think says on with the show. Yes, it does say that. And so we will start and follow the agenda unless you have any questions for me or for Lauren about the overall document, the layout, calendar of events for the next couple of meetings, anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Are there questions for Mr. Williams or Lauren, Mr. Breithaupt? Hearing none. Our next item on the agenda is personnel services, all funds.
Yeah, Lauren and I just realized we didn't decide who's actually presenting this, but personnel services are on page 19 of the budget. We will be skipping around a little bit in the budget document, but page 19 has the organizational chart, community at top, mayor and council, and our organizational structure. And the next two pages are, these are the pages that I need my reading glasses for, but also an incredibly useful overview of every single type of position we have in this organization. And it's amazing to me with all the different things we do, you can fit our entire staff, our 140 people on these two pages. And you'll see how small some of the departments are and how we prioritize our funding. I've already talked about the 1.6 additional FTE that we have proposed in this budget. You'll see where those exist. And again, we'll talk about them in individual department budgets. And on page 22, I already touched on this as well. This is such a great chart that compares us with other cities, and it really separates the apples and the oranges. So it wouldn't be fair for us to compare ourselves with Wilsonville unless you took their transit system out. They have a transit system, right? They also have Clackamas County Sheriffs instead of their own police department. You have to adjust for all of those things. Unlike some cities we are adjacent to, we don't have our own golf course. So we took out the golf course from the city of Lake Oswego, and you can still see one thing I'd love to show you is just pick any department at random. Lake Oswego has 15 planners, 15 people in the planning department. We have 4. It really is a different kind of scenario. And so that's all I really want to say about this personnel chart. You will be hearing from each director about their own departments, and you can ask them what each of these staff people do. Captain Rollins is eager to explain what each staff person does. But that's all we wanted to touch on, I think, on personal service. Is that right, Mark? So any questions about that overview chart?
Hearing no questions, the next item is the city attorney, city council, and city management.
Before we actually start the city attorney, I actually left off the revenues in the general fund. So I'm hoping that we could go through that really quickly before
Yes.
the other departments.
Please proceed.
Great. So on page 38 is probably the best page to be looking at. This has what would have been in the general fund if they had been consolidated in the past. So it is a more apples to apples comparison than the page before it, where you cannot see that property taxes were in the general fund because they were in other funds. We are pretty flat on most of our revenues. We use the League of Oregon Cities projections for the gas tax and liquor, cigarette tax, things like that. And so those are provided to us and based on a per capita usually. The property taxes, we estimate pretty conservatively a 3% increase. There's not a lot of new building and we usually aren't seeing much more than the 3% increase. Same thing with the library district levy, about a 3%, maybe a little flat in the first year. In things like we have the franchise fees, and those actually are going down a little bit. We're hoping with our new franchise fee and row program that they will actually be increasing, but we don't know exactly. And some of our franchise fees have been going down over the last few years. So we took a pretty conservative approach on that estimation. Things like the fees and charges include recreation programs, facility use fees, engineering fees, planning fees, planning development review fees. Fines and forfeitures includes from municipal court and for library fines and fees. Interest, you'll see that there's quite a jump there over the last few years. We have began investing in the last fiscal year. So we're hoping that with our investments, we're going to be seeing a little bit more in terms of revenue. We've also had more money in the bank account, so that's always a good thing. But hopefully we'll continue to see some good interest coming in, although our rates have been decreasing as time is going on. Local government investment pool. Licenses and permits, again, remaining pretty flat. Those are for our liquor licenses, our business licenses, alarm permits, things like that. Transfers from other funds, you'll see actually decreased quite a bit. That is because now those funds are inside the general fund. The police, parks, library, and planning funds are now inside the general fund, so they're not transferring to the general fund, and that's the reason for the big decrease there. The SPIDA and lease proceeds are both new accounting standards over the last few years, where it requires us to account for subscription-based IT agreements and leases as revenue in the first year and a capital expense for the same amount. It is a little bit strange and it causes a lot of issues with budgeting, but that is how it is. And so we are going to be moving forward with that. And I have some projected speed up proceeds. We are no longer going to be leasing any vehicles. So that is why there's no lease proceeds in that. And then proceeds from debt issuance, you'll see the 7 million that we're expecting. In this current fiscal year, we're not sure if we're going to be able to issue the debt yet by the end of June 30, but that is for the operations center. That is the parks fund portion. Are there any questions on the revenues?
Well done.
Thank you.
All right. Now I think we can move to city attorney, city council, and city management.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to welcome to the table Kaylee Klein, our city attorney since September. I think it is awesome that Kaylee is the first department to present since she has not been a part of this before. So we're going to see what she can do.
All right. I'll try and set the bar high for the rest of it.
Exactly. So Kaylee, take it away. And the city attorney budget is on page 39.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. I see many familiar faces and a few new ones, but thank you for having me here tonight. As John mentioned, I've been here 8 months, which seems like it's flown by. And my task as the in-house city attorney for the first time in a very long time is to build from the ground up a highly functioning and efficient and effective in-house legal department while providing daily advice to all of the departments, the city manager and the counselors, managing our active litigation and attending city council attending and advising at city council meetings. So it's been a big learning curve for me. I spent the last 10 years at the Oregon Department of Justice in their general counsel division and also serving directly the Attorney General in the AG's office. So a lot of comparable government service experience. The change here is primarily the breadth of the subject matter that you get on a daily or weekly basis. But I've listed for you my priorities for the next biennium. As I mentioned, really standing up the legal department. I think there's work to be done there. This was my jumping headfirst into this and trying to get to know how the city's functioning, what's best for the client in terms of effective advice. And so this coming year, I really want to work on an improved legal tracking system to actually better manage legal requests so I can get timely responses out. Also, having learned what type of advice different departments prefer, whether you have a traditional, very long and thorough legal memo or something we sometimes call a pocket memo, where it's a very short, condensed set of advice. And so really just trying to figure out what the best fit is for the client there. My philosophy on in-house legal and general counsel advising is early and active engagement with the client. So we're really focusing here on preventative advising to reduce risks to the city. And also that includes reducing costly litigation. So I can walk through some of the changes I've made in our projections, or happy to take questions, but I would note that we are working with Barry, Elsner, and Hammond now as our outside counsel law firm. They are extremely well respected in the Portland metro area and have served municipalities since their inception. They have just a wealth of knowledge, and it's clear that they look out for the interests of the city beyond just legal advice, but political, optical, including all stakeholders. They're just a wonderful law firm. They also have the lowest rates that I've been able to find. So I think that will help in our budget going forward. Although this may sound high, their associates are $285 an hour and their partners are $325 an hour, which is actually significantly lower. Some of the law firms are in the $400 and $500 an hour. So I think that is a positive change that we've made and has served not just legal advice, but a lot of educational advice for different departments. Right now, our budget is balancing all right for biennium 2025. That is in part because I have not hired a second person yet. It's just been me so far, and it probably will be for most of this year. I just finished second round interviews for an honors attorney candidate. I had the option of adding a paralegal or an assistant, or in this case, having come from DOJ, I had the idea of an honors attorney, which just means a brand new attorney who's been recently barred at the Oregon State Bar. And so they have a cheaper billable rate, but there's a great opportunity for mentorship from me and really getting a glimpse on municipal government law from the start. On the flip side, their skills for legal research and writing, that's like their number one thing they can offer, and that's what I really need help with right now because of the number of requests I'm getting. So I think it'll be a really mutually beneficial relationship. Hoping to offer that position probably next week, but given issues with I think it'll probably be a little bit later when that person starts, but I'm really excited to potentially have someone else in the legal department besides myself. And then finally, the thing I was going to note that, a substantial cause of the legal department costs have been and continue to be the Oppenlander Field matter. Of course, the cost of the trial, and I came in after all of that had resolved, but I was part of the efforts to oppose the attorney fee award, and that is ongoing. And so I really do think once we can put an end to Oppenlander, that the professional and technical services budget item will come significantly down. We won't have to be employing really expensive outside counsel trial lawyers. That's probably one of your most expensive attorneys. And then we also have bond counsel attorneys who've worked on that matter. And it will also allow me to devote a lot more of my time to bringing more matters in-house, because as I've focused on that, I've had to send more things out. So that's where I stand in the legal department, but I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions for the city attorney? Hearing none. Mr. Williams, would you like to talk about the city council and city management?
I would be happy to do that. Chair Larson, the city council budget is on page 41. And it's a pretty straightforward budget. There's only a couple of things that I wanted to note to your attention. This does include the stipends for the council that were approved by voters. So those numbers are in here. There is a little bit of an increase in professional and technical services that just reflects that we are showing the city's contract lobbyist entirely within the city council budget, rather than dividing it between city council and city manager, which sort of didn't make any sense. I'm sorry, that's in the contract lobbyist line. I meant to say the contract lobbyist line. The professional and technical services account is where we pay for things that the city council requests be done or need to be done. For example, we had a special election one year and the election costs were included in that line. Otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward budget. The council does have a travel and training budget that they agreed. The number we're proposing to extend that from the last number of 15,000 a year. And what the council agreed is that that's $3,000 a year for each one of them for their sum total of their travel and training needs. Lauren, anything else you think that's in this budget? Pretty small budget, pretty straightforward.
And city management?
City management, next page, page 42. The city manager, this is my department. This includes the staff that do public records, that do public city council support, and other key functions. Among other things that I would like to note in here, we have our city's DEI budget, which is basically allows us to co-sponsor events. Allows us to put on some programming, and it allows us to pay a contractor who assists us with DEIB in a variety of areas. And we'd be happy to talk about that more. We have staff in the room who are very familiar with that. I also want to note, I'm really pleased that we are proposing a investment in emergency operations in the professional and technical services. We have $60,000 proposed that would update the city's emergency operations plan, which is almost 10 years old. And it's outdated, and it really has to be updated to ensure that should we have an emergency, well, to ensure that we're doing our best to plan for emergencies, but a really key reason for that to be updated and compliant is if we do have an emergency, like we did with the ice storm, it has to exist and it has to be compliant in order for us to qualify for federal funds, should there be any federal funds in this new world. But it's a really important thing. And one of the items that we all hear from our community about is concerns about how are we planning for natural hazards, wildfires, how would we organize as a city to deliver services to our community. All of that is addressed in the emergency operations plan. Dylan Digby, among many other responsibilities, is responsible for this part of the work and does an awesome job. But it's a little bit on a shoestring. We don't have a dedicated emergency operations person. We did at one point. It didn't really work out. Work level wise, it's just one of those jobs that's sort of an in-between for us. And so I appreciate Dylan fitting it in. The budget highlights and the noteworthy items describe a few other things that we provide for in this department, but it's pretty straightforward. I thought there was some really cool, we won't go through the performance measures very much, but there's some pretty cool facts on the right-hand side of the page and that illustrate the our ability to communicate with the community. One of our interesting metrics in this department is number of city council meetings. And some, I won't tell you what I think, but some metrics we like to rise, some metrics we like to go down, but this is one you can guess for yourself. So any questions about city management or city council?
Hearing none, shall we move on to economic development, planning and building?
We shall. Thank you. Economic development is on page 45. We'll be bouncing around just a little bit in the document with these three funds, but since they sort of fit together, I'm going to present them as one. And the reason that I'm presenting them is that in addition to being the city manager, right now I'm also the community development director, which I have been since I was hired 8 years ago. And I'm very pleased to say that we were able to put together a restoration of the community development director. And we are in the process of hiring for that position. The community development director in most communities coordinates the functions of these three functions: planning, building, and economic development. In some cities, it also includes engineering. We're not doing that because the engineering function is working really well under Eric, and we'll hear about that function. But there's a value in having a director level person leading those departments. There's a value to the staff for the leadership that they get. They struggle to get the time and attention that they need from me because I'm scattered across the entire 150 pages of this budget and the organization. And so we are able to actually have a almost entirely cost neutral community development director. During the pandemic, the council created and we hired a economic development staff person who was instrumental in distributing, among other things, there was American Rescue Plan dollars that went in direct grants to businesses and other organizations in this community. And our economic development staff person led those projects. We're in a different situation now, and it's my judgment that what we need is a director who can provide the leadership for these departments. And also do the next steps on the Vision 43 and waterfront projects that have been the council's big initiatives, an organizational initiative. You'll hear more about those in just a moment from me. But it's going to be essentially this person will directly manage every employee in planning, will directly manage the building official, and will also be hands-on management of some economic development projects. And we are very excited to have that back in the organization. And I'm very excited, even though I love the work, it's not getting done as well as it could right now because there's not a dedicated nurse. So I'm really pleased that we were able to provide this basically in a cost neutral way. I'll sort of blend these three departments together. I mentioned that there is a shared position that we are proposing to hire. The building department is the main funding source for that shared admin assistant position. The building department is on page 85. Our building fund, like all building funds in the state of Oregon, dedicates revenue from building permits to building staff. It's a limited fund in that regard. We have to spend our building permit revenue on providing the service. And this department has gone a little bit up and down in staffing over the years as the needs of our development community have come and gone. Right now, we have 2 FTE. We have 3 FTE budgeted. We've had 2 FTE for some time. But our revenues are doing actually fairly well. This is one department that our revenues are actually allowing us to make an addition to our staffing. And what the building department really needs is a admin assistant to be working at the counter, to be coordinating permits, to be handling many of the day-to-day tasks that would free up our building inspectors and planning reviewers for work out in the field or in front of a computer reviewing plans. This will also be sort of a point person downstairs at the front counter, which we haven't had since I've been here in the planning and building and engineering windows. So the funding for the position is half from the building department. It'll be dedicated to those to that work. 1/4 from engineering, so that's utility funds, and 1/4 from the general fund and the planning department. And I think it's going to be a great boon to those departments downstairs. And I'm really pleased that we're able to provide it. Otherwise, the building fund is a pretty straightforward budget. You'll see that that slight increase in the personnel, but it's just folks doing work down there. They do have some contract inspection that they can offer when we have a staff on leave, for example, or when we're doing training, we may have contract inspectors coming to make sure that the projects still get going. But otherwise, the expenses in this department, mostly personnel. The planning department is on page 64, so you'll have to bounce back for that. And this is our first look at a department with those salmon colored rows that I talked about earlier and that Lauren is far better than me at explaining. But what you'll see here in planning is now it's in the general fund. There's also a tab on page 89, which is the old separate planning fund. And so if you do what I'm doing right here, hold them both up, you can see that page 89 has the salmon colored rows with zeros in them for the budget that we're talking about right now, because that planning fund is being closed down. Everything is moving to the general fund. And so we have what Lauren has done here is showed you what was happening in the planning fund in the salmon colored columns. And then we have the proposed budget in white on the right side. Now, the planning department is a relatively small department, but measures pretty high when it comes to city council priorities. A number of the council priorities are handled by this small department, and the lion's share of the professional and technical services line items that you see proposed are regarding the Vision 43 project. So there's two categories of funding that goes into this. One is we are spending, the projects are moving just a little bit slower. We're still fully on schedule to complete most of the work this calendar year, but we need to carry over some of the funds for our consultant teams into the second half of this calendar year. And so, and then we are proposing to allocate $100,000 each in the two-year budget to implementing the waterfront project and implementing the Vision 43 project. So this could be anything from design studies for a certain site that we might enter into a partnership with someone. This might be working on, the council has talked about a possible tax increment finance district on Highway 43, similar to the waterfront project. This would be funding that would allow us to hire a contractor to do that work. This would allow us maybe to do some work, the next steps on detailed zoning in each of these project areas. And then the remaining 50,000 in that professional and technical services would be for other planning department priority projects. This comes from, we have a list of projects that have been prioritized by the Planning Commission and approved by the City Council as the next long-range planning projects for the community, things like looking at our tree code, for example. And this would give our new community development director a little pot of money to take on some of those projects and to work with the community in the Vision 43 and waterfront areas to keep the momentum going on these projects. I think that's the main thing that I wanted to talk about. I don't think I mentioned that the community development director, we propose be 0.9, 90% from the planning, the general fund, because they'll be directly managing those staff, and 0.1, 10% from the building fund. It's been my experience through the years that the building department is very, very independent and needs limited support. They just do their job and they do a fantastic job of it. I think the majority of this person's time will be in the economic development and in the planning spheres. So that's why we propose this split as things. So economic development, planning, and building. Anything something on this? And then my hope is in the 2 years that you will be hearing that presentation from our community development director, not me. So I'll be sitting eating a cookie in 2 years. I'm looking forward to it very much. There's no questions about those budgets, and please do know that You can think of questions later, come back at the next meeting, and, we're going to be hitting you with a lot of information. So we fully understand. Come back on Thursday and you say, I did have a question about the planning fund. We are happy to take that. So here we go. The next department is Human Resources. Alyssa Preston is our Deputy City Manager and also our Human Resources Director. And I'd like you to look at page 46 from Human Resources.
Maybe at the bottom.
There's quite a few of them.
This could be another job I could have this night.
You're not even.
The last one.
Maybe put it in reverse order.
Work on that later.
Good evening, City Council and Budget Committee. My name is Alyssa Preston. I'm the Deputy City Manager and HR Director. And tonight I'm here to talk about the HR budget. It is fairly status quo. We have 2.55 FTEs, that is 1 full-time manager and 2 part-time employees. You will see a little bit of an increase, and I'll talk about that in a moment. My position is funded through the city manager's department, so that's where I fall. The slight increase to one of the part-time employees is to help us with a transition to a new human resources information system, which I'll get to in a little while. Our department serves 12 city departments and approximately 145 employees. This budget includes funding for professional and technical services that all of the city departments, including employee and management training, recruitment costs, occupational health services, DOT physicals, drug testing, employee engagement, events, wellness efforts. We also have professional services to supplement some of our staff time for program administration, such as our flexible spending account, our COBRA administration, and our unemployment claims. We also have a contract for employment and labor law representation, and we retain a benefits agent. So the majority of what you're seeing in this under materials and services, you do see a couple of them broken out. Benefits broker services is broken out. Our recruitment expenses have stayed about the same, surprisingly. And then I wanted to point out that our wellness program, while we did not use very much the last biennium, we actually tried to do a lot of the things in-house instead of paying for them externally. But we would like to really recognize that employee wellness is also employee engagement as well as well-being. And so we want to start to utilize some of the, or keep the same funding that we had in previous biennium, but start to use it. So we, the HR department leads an employee benefits committee, a safety committee, and an employee engagement committee. And we continue to capture metrics on our wellness and training efforts and the impact that we are hopefully making on retention. A few noteworthy items in the upcoming biennium. In the current biennium, we began implementation of a new HRIS system that is called NeoGov. You may have heard of it before. We use it for our recruitment and then also our onboarding. And we've now added modules like a training module. We're going to be adding in the next fiscal year the core HR, which is benefits, time and attendance, eventually payroll, a performance module, and digital form management. Also, in the city will begin bargaining with both of our police officer and our sergeants unions next week. It's a little bit later than normal, but we will start bargaining next week. Both unions are represented by Clackamas County Peace Officers Association, and their agreements expire June 30th of 2025. So we anticipate we will be bargaining into FY26, which is why you will see under our professional and technical services a little bit of an increase in FY26, and then the expectation is that we wouldn't need as much for labor law. We are 1 year into our 3-year contract with our general union, AFSCME, so we won't be bargaining that contract until early 2027. And that is what I have for you today. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Yes, Counselor Bright.
With the new HRIS system, does that also include integration of that system with the financial system for the payroll piece?
It will, yes. Mhm.
Are there other questions? Yes, Mr. Groner.
Yeah,
Counselor Groner.
I'm not sure if I missed, how long are these union contracts and when do they expire?
So they could range. Sometimes we have a 1 year, like a rollover for 1 year in case we need a little bit of extra time. We typically are about 3 years. Our last officer's contract was 4 years, but that's because it took us about 1 year just to bargain. So we were 1 year into it by the time we signed. So we try for a 3-year contract. That's usually what we're going for. And like I said, we're 1 year into the AFSCME contract, which is a 3-year. So we will start bargaining for AFSCME in early of 2027.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there other questions? Hearing none, can move on to Finance and Municipal Court.
Thank you. So the finance is on page 48. And what you can see here is that we're staying flat on positions. We are actually fully staffed right now, which is fantastic. And so those increases are just cost increases for all the employee benefits and everything. In the finance budget, one of the largest things we have is auditing and accounting services. So that's our external auditors, Marina and Company. We're at the end of a 5-year contract with them. And so we are going to have to go out for RFP probably in the next few months here. So that's why you see a little bit of an increase or in this year and then the following years. We also have items like our armored car service, bond counsel. We have a consultant that helps us with our arbitrage calculations. We also have a investment advisor now that has started working with us to help us invest our money, and our bond paying agents and things like that. As Alyssa mentioned, we are converting to the payroll for NeoGov also, and so you'll see $60,000 in next year for that. The previous biennium, we paid for some upgrades for the council chamber since court is under finance. Municipal court is on 58, page 58. Again, this is staying fairly flat, just a few increase in hours for one of our part-time people here. We have public defenders, interpreters, witnesses, pro tem judges, and that makes up a majority of the cost here. It's a very small budget, and so it's just really those few things and some personnel-related costs like training and travel. Any questions on finance or municipal court?
Yes.
Just a quick question. When you talk about the payroll software, have you considered outsourcing or have you ever looked at, study of using like, an ADP or Paychex or whatnot?
Yes, we did. We went through a process where we looked at a bunch of different options and that was one of them, but it didn't seem to work out for us.
Yes, Mr. Beadle.
All right, this is as you know, my first budget process with you guys. So I was just curious as I look at, not in specific to municipal court or finance, just across the board in general. And when I look at benefit costs compared to what salaries and wages are, I mean, to me, it seems like it's a very substantial cost and it's much higher than what in my career, how I've done for budget. I was just curious, what makes up those amounts? It's just more my curiosity than anything, so I can understand it a little bit better.
Yeah, we actually do have excellent benefits here, which costs a lot of money. A large portion of it is PERS. taxes, obviously, about 30% is PERS. And then we have 30% of the cost of the salary. And then health insurance, dental insurance, our life and long-term disability insurances, and some other benefits. There's some other benefits that I'm thinking of, but basically just mostly our PERS and our health and medical.
Excess. The lion's share of it.
Yes, we have a question from Ann on the screen. Abby, I'm sorry. You're on mute.
Um,
No, you're good. We can hear you.
You can hear me now. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, first of all, I think as most folks or some folks in the committee know, I've also been doing both municipal and nonprofit finances for a long time and been in Lauren's seat in a variety of places. And I thought this was one of the best presented budgets, what with the great explanation of the different funds and the collapsing of the different funds, made it a lot easier to understand, as opposed to, funds going from one fund to another kind of thing, just really simplified things. So I've said this before and I'll say it again. Kudos to Lauren and John and the rest of the staff and putting in the performance measures as well, because it's one thing to look at them, just separately, but also see what are the goals and how are we achieving those. I share this with my neighbors, the people that I, do things with, because I want them to understand what's going on with this as well. And one of my questions from a good friend who's also served in California on it was that I thought was a very good question. Do part-time staff get benefits in our city?
Yes, so our part-time staff over 30 hours a week get full benefits. And then anything underneath that, we have partial benefits. It's somewhat prorated based off of the hours worked.
Okay, hours worked. Okay, I was starting to talk to them about that as well. And I think, John mentioned this much earlier, of course, but there's and I know you're going to touch on that eventually about, the out years, as we call them, that, the city's facing a pretty significant structural imbalance because of property taxes. And I don't want us to forget about this. We've got, we've got some bad news staring us in the face because of revenues not keeping up with expenses. And I think this committee as a whole, the city council, the taxpayers who may or may not be watching this, need to get their heads wrapped around that and wrapped around it pretty soon, that, there is a deficit coming up. So just wanted to remind us all of that rather unhappy news. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I would echo her comments as well about consolidating the funds into the general fund. That is a huge improvement in this budget. So certainly you and the staff are to be commended for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Ann?
I have a quick question. It's on the municipal court budget. Maybe you said this and I missed it, but the professional technical services have about doubled. I wondered what was driving that.
So you can see that under the professional and technical services, we had budgeted about 67,000 for last biennium. We just underspent it. So we're budgeting pretty much the same amount, actually a little bit less. Because these costs are sometimes random, we don't know exactly how much we're going to be paying for public defenders in a year, interpreters, witnesses, pro tem judges. It all is dependent on the cases and what they need for those cases. And so we are being a little bit more conservative on that and budgeting a little bit more than what we've been doing in the past, but it's actually what we budgeted in the previous years too. So.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Groner.
Yes, is there no revenue associated with the courts in terms of fines?
There are, on, back to the general fund main page, page 38. You can see under the fines and forfeitures line item, a majority of that in there, that 250,000 approximately is from our court fines and fees.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Hearing none, I think we can move on to information technology.
Thank you, Chair, and we'll ask Sean Shermonte to come up. He is our Information Technology Manager and explain the budget. And Sean is new in this role since 2 years ago, so welcome, Sean.
Yeah, thank you. It's not been that long, but thank you. Good evening, Budget Committee and City Council. My name is Sean Charamonte. I've been at the city for 7 years. I took over the management role in September. So fairly new to the role. We have not filled my previous position, which I was acting in July, so acting manager. So you'll see some of the dips in the budget here from not having that position filled. And also, I was pretty conservative with the budget because I didn't know what the previous manager had planned and had coming down the pipe. So you'll see a lot of the deficits, and then you'll see the increase later on. So that's a bit of catching up, but it's also, new hardware. We need to upgrade our pre-pandemic hardware. So all of our workstations for everybody, network switches, stuff like that. And then new projects that are coming forward. So modern desktop deployments, security and data governance, expansion of our multi-factor authentication, new police evidence system is coming, and modernization and migration of the city website. As far as the department goes, we are 3 FTEs, and we manage everything from the handheld device that the building department uses out in the field, to the MDCs in the police cars, to the network switch that gets you to the internet, or to our cloud services like NeoGov that was mentioned earlier. And how do we do all this with such a small department? And we do use managed services to help us. We have a lot of equipment to manage, and we rely on them because our staff is so short. A lot of things we do in the middle of the night, like upgrading our network hardware and our firewalls and all that stuff. This service is super helpful in us to being efficient and keeping the city secure. So hopefully that wasn't too short. I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Folks have questions on that? Can you expand a little bit on the managed services that you mentioned? Is that under professional technical services?
Professional technical services.
Repair and maintenance agreements, or?
It'd be professional and technical services. So one service we use with a company called RSM is they will monitor our network switches and our firewalls. And if something goes down in the middle of the night, and this is really crucial for our police department, something goes down in the middle of the night, they log in, they take care of it. If it's something they need hands-on for, they would call me in, and then I would be their hands in the field if necessary for that. And then they also do the security patching in the middle of the night. So we can't patch our network switches or our firewalls and all that stuff during the day because then people wouldn't be able to work. So those have to be done, after the library closes at 7 o'clock at night, but also, at a time that's not really a high traffic time for the police department to do what they need to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Interesting. Council President Baumgartner?
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much for this information, and also for all the work you've done in support of, me personally sometimes when I've needed help. But I was curious, I've noticed a lot of security authorizations increases. Has that increased cost to our budget? I don't know where that would fall. So
It is, initially it falls under like the new project, but it would be under repair and maintenance agreements after the project's off the ground. Similar to other offerings that, we do, it's like a yearly maintenance fee, but it costs money, and we would use a professional services to help IT get that project off the ground and get it up and running. And then once, it's just a maintenance agreement after that we have to pay yearly to keep that up and running.
I was just curious, since I've seen such an increase as a user, I wondered how that translated to what that's costing the city. But I know it's all necessary and working, even though I hate two-factor authentication.
It's an unnecessary evil.
Getting over it. Thanks for your
I
help.
mean, it's a necessary evil, but it's frustrating sometimes. I can
It's fine. It's,
understand that.
it's all good. Thank you.
Are there further questions? Yes, Kevin, I'm sorry.
Over the last 15 months I've been here, various departments have brought up a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is data storage. Apparently, there's a lot of cost to third-party vendors regarding that. I'm just wondering if there's been any investigation of hosting our own or doing that ourselves, or how much we're actually paying for that.
Not currently at this stage, just being so new in the role, but definitely looking into how we're doing things and being cost effective in that is definitely something in consideration. But don't really have any granular answer for you, but I'm happy to continue the conversation.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I believe we can move on to public safety.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We do have a couple, thank you, Sean. And what I meant is that you weren't here at the budget table 2 years ago.
Oh, sorry.
You haven't been here for 2 years. We do have a couple of our larger departments coming up, public safety, library, we still have the non-departmental. I just want to ask if anyone needs a short break before we keep going, or you want us to dive in?
A stretch for just a minute.
Okay, let's try to take about a 5-minute. Think we can do it in 5 minutes?
Yes.
So Bernie, there's you, there's Mary, and there's me.
I'm Mary Hill.
And Mary Hill.
Yeah. It's fun. So what do you say?
I think she's still around.
Oh, she is on.
Her family's all, she's still.
You're opening.
He does have. Yeah, she's like 95.
Yeah.
Her father lived.
Can someone unmute the speaker, please?
Into the budget talk, I'd just like to take one quick second to recognize and acknowledge the outstanding work that the men and women of the Westland Police Department do on a daily basis in service to the citizens of the city. Every day, they serve selflessly with professionalism and integrity, and Chief Mahoon and I are very proud of each and every one of them. When we look at the, jump into the budget, we look at personnel services. The Westland Police Department currently is fully staffed. And what that basically means for the wages and salaries line is we don't expect to see the same level of savings as we may have in years past. Why that's, I guess, consequential is, in years past, if we would run with 3 or 4 vacant positions, those are 3, 4 salaries and wages that we are not paying. And that can sometimes make up for overages in other areas. So without that particular compensation, I think it's important to look at each line item and make sure the increases match the needs that are coming up in the next couple of years. So specifically, materials and services. We are looking at an increase in many of, if not most of, some of the most indispensable equipment and the tools that we use. A couple examples are up on the screen for you. Our tasers. Tasers are purchased through Axon. The cost over the next 5 years, as compared to the last 5 years, is more than triple. Then we just the less than lethal options that the police officers carry on patrol is, again, it's an indispensable, it's a required piece of equipment. We move on to body cameras. We'll also be looking at about a 12% increase in annual cost for our body camera program over the next 2 years, as opposed to the last 2. Vehicles. If anyone has purchased a vehicle in the last couple of years, you'll know that the price of vehicles has increased. But for us, so has upfitting. Now, our upfitting costs have actually gone up by 60% over the last 2 years. And basically what that means is upfitting is all of the things that we have to do to make a patrol vehicle ready for patrol after we buy the actual car. So that's the seats in the back, the cages, the lights, the sirens, the push bumpers, everything that makes a police car a police car. 2 years ago, if we purchased a car, that upfitting would cost about $15,000. Today, it's $25,000. Same equipment, same installers. Property and evidence costs continue to go up. So the police department right now is in transition to a new evidence software platform. And of course, everything new is more expensive than the old version. Increased storage demands on us is also it's also something to look at. So we seize more and more digital evidence now every year going forward than we did the year prior. And the digital evidence now is so much better, so much more in depth than it was 10 years ago. The same level of evidence seizure now may be gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes larger than it would have been a couple of years ago. So we need a robust system in order to handle that amount of evidence. And also we are increasing certain safety features. One of the additions that we are putting in is a fume hood. And that is for our property and evidence technician and officers when they are field testing narcotics. They actually have an enclosed safe system in order to do that, to prevent any accidental exposures. That's very, very important equipment that we want to make sure that we have at the police department. Next slide, Dylan. Continuing in the material and services area, we continue our partnership with the Lake Oswego Police Department for our BHU program. Our BHU specialist, Amber Hambrick, is completely indispensable to us. She's a fantastic resource. We share her salary with Lake Oswego Police Department, as well as a new software system. It's a file system that she can very safely and confidentially keep her patient files. We are sharing that cost throughout the entirety of Clackamas County for the BHUs around the county. Not only does Amber respond to calls, she shows up on site with us to really provide that expert resource when it comes to behavioral health and calls that involve a mental component. She conducts training for us. So to date, she's done over 80 hours of specialized CIT training for Westland police officers. It's our goal to make sure that we have every single police officer, by the time that we're done, they have gone through the entire 40-hour specialized CIT training week with Amber. Continuing on the training line, it has always been a goal of Chief Mahuna and I to make sure that we are providing the best, the most up-to-date, the most effective training for our people. Just recently, you can see we have brought some advanced investigatory training, especially for our detective unit. The FEDI training that's kind of at the end there, that's a forensic trauma-based interviewing class and training, along with the CIT training. But we continue to offer those training options for our officers in order to increase their skill set, increase their capabilities. It just makes them a better, more well-rounded police officer as a whole. You'll see the IACP and the OACP acronyms there. That stands for International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police, because we also believe that executive level training is also important. Not only do Chief Mahuna and I attend those trainings on a regular basis, but we also try and bring the sergeants, the other managers into that to expose them to some higher level executive training in order to round them out as well. The police department began a drone program at the end of last year. And currently we have one drone, one pilot. Our goal is to continue to grow that program, add additional drones and additional pilots. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a couple seconds when we get into kind of that force multiplier and the tools that we use, leveraging technology as a way to better serve the community. So we'll come back to that in just a second. LOCOM is our valuable dispatch partner. So Lake Oswego Police Department, they do our dispatching for us. And quite frankly, we receive a level of service from LOCOM that we just would not be able to find through other dispatch providers. So what we pay in order to be a part of that group, and LOCOM only dispatches for LOCOM, Milwaukee, and West Linn, that provides a level of service and things that we just can't get anywhere else. So they're very valuable. And then our chaplaincy program also is an exceptional resource for us.
I think some people might not know what LOCOM is.
Oh,
I don't know.
Lake Oswego Communications. So they are obviously the 911 dispatchers, you're familiar with them, right? They are the heroes on the other side of the phone. So when you call with emergency, they call us and direct us to you. And so those folks are employed through Lake Oswego Police Department, the city of Lake Oswego, and they're responsible for dispatching the calls for service to the three cities, Milwaukee, West Linn, and Lake Oswego. All right, so just jump into a couple statistics real quick. In 2024, Westland Police Department, we responded to 11,871 calls for service. And that includes 2,986 traffic stops, 1,656 citations. And we did that while being the lowest staffed police department per capita in the metro area. So we have approximately 1.05, let's call it 1 officer per 1,000 residents. You can see our daily shift minimums are 3. So we have 1 sergeant and 2 officers. So what that means is at any given point of the day, for the most part, we likely have 3 officers out patrolling for all 27,000 residents. And there are occasionally from 2 to 6 in the morning, we may only have 2. And so we really are doing more with less. And you can see the average response time last year to priority 1 and 2 calls was 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Certainly is a goal of the police department to get that time down as low as possible. Dylan? This is a real quick slide on comparables, just so that we can kind of know what we're talking about and why the number that I just went over is really important. You can see Westland's at the top. We have our population, 27,000. We have a total of 34 public safety employees. Now, in full disclosure, full transparency, public safety employees include sworn and non-sworn employees, okay? So we're not trying to play any games with the words. But when you look at Lake Oswego, right under us, our partners to the north, they have 74 public safety employees. Now, they include the low-comm dispatch that we just talked about, so it's not quite apples to apples. Well, I know Lake Oswego, the police officers, they have about 48 sworn police officers. So I was giving them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, when you get up to 74. Yeah. And then we'll run down, I'm not going to run through every city, but you can see Oregon City, Milwaukee. You can see if those numbers look. When you're looking at a per capita basis, now this is just police officers, so not all public safety employees. You can see Milwaukee, their ratio is 1.54, Canby 1.44, and ours is 1.05. So, you know, what I take from this is, right, additional police staff will do a couple things for us, and I kind of listed them out, but they will certainly help us reduce response times and get that 8-minute, 48-second number a lot lower. They'll increase community engagement, and they'll expand our options for proactive policing strategies. And that is really the goal with additional police officers, is to be a department that is proactive versus reactive. That's what having a robust, staff will be able to do for you. Go ahead, Dylan, next slide. All right, the fun stuff, right? The highlights, community outreach is super important for the Westland Police Department. It's always one of Chief Mahuna's major goals. So we try and become involved in as many city-sponsored events as possible, and some of our own. The Old Time Fair, that's kind of our Super Bowl. I think last year, we may have had every single police employee at that fair at some point throughout the weekend, right? Because that is, if you're going to reach out and you're going to touch as many Westland residents as you possibly can, the Old Time Fair, that's the weekend to do it. So we were down there, but we participated in the Juneteenth, Halloween trick-or-treat event, Coffee with a Cop, Faith in Blue. Who went to our Touch a Truck, Faith in Blue, last year at Willamette Christian Church? Anybody? Oh, okay. Y'all missed it. It was fantastic. We had all sorts of partners there. Public Works was there. We had Morton, but we had cherry pickers and dump trucks and fire engines, and kids loved it. It was a fantastic, perfect weather. Please don't miss that this year. It's in October. Shop with the Cop. We do our blood drives. Chief Mahuna continues to do his Coffee with the Chief. He's always available for every resident anytime they want to meet with him. Talk about their concerns, and he's also always showing up to community meetings. He went to several NA meetings, not to mention Rotary, Lions Club. And here's a noteworthy item when it comes to kind of some of the staffing challenges is the police department every year, we receive grant funds from ODOT in order to do specific traffic enforcement missions throughout the city. Right, traffic always has been and probably always will be the #1 complaint of the residents to the police department are traffic issues. And these grants, these funded programs allow us to go outside of regular patrol time to focus on things like speeding, distracted driving, seat belts, DUI, crosswalk, things that the citizens really care about. And because we have issues and challenges with either backfilling those positions or just having enough staff in general, we're not able to take full advantage of all these grant funds. So we can't do as many of these patrols as we would like to. And I believe last year, we were able to use less than 25% of the funds that were available to us. So additional cops means additional missions, additional traffic enforcement. See how that goes. All right, Dylan, next slide. All right, we talked about that. We're getting smaller now. I'm almost done. We talked about the training. That's the same thing. So leveraging the technology tools. I told you I get back to the drone piece. So force multipliers. What I mean by a force multiplier, if you haven't heard that term before, that is just simply a tool or a force that dramatically increases the effectiveness of everything else around it. Right, a drone is a force multiplier in the respect that a drone can do the work of 3, 4, 5, maybe sometimes 10 cops all by itself, right? As it tracks suspects or cars or looks for a missing person in the woods. It reconstructs crash scenes. It can do that all by itself, the same kind of work. In order to, we go to Marius Young, and we're looking for a missing person. That drone can cover more space and more time than 20 cops could, right? And it can see in the dark, which is really cool. So at night, it can do that. We're also then exploring the feasibility of another force multiplier which is automatic license plate recognition technology. Again, that's something that can do the work by itself that it would take 10 or 15 or 20 police officers to do by being able to do things like locate stolen vehicles, tracking suspects, missing persons, simply by able to capture license plates. So go ahead, Dylan, next. Okay, not going to read that. Again, we just came back. So the main point here is the Westland Police Department, we would love to be in a position where we can increase our staffing in order to be a more nimble, a more robust police department, increase our capabilities, be more proactive than reactive. And all of that is to better serve the citizens of Westland. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chief. We appreciate that. Are there questions for the Acting Chief? Yes, Mr. Beadle.
So when you talk about response time of being like 8 minutes and 48 seconds, what is the benchmark? I mean, what if you're to increase the staff, what would that benchmark be in regards to what that response time would come down to?
I would love to see it at 6 minutes.
6 minutes, okay.
I don't know that there is a tried and true kind of national benchmark because there's just so much variability between rural, city, large departments, small departments. But what that means, just kind of in practical terms, if I leave the police department to go to the farthest reaches of the city on a priority 1 call, and right now it's taking me 8 minutes and 48 seconds, if I can shave off 2.5 minutes, right, that can be the difference between a really, really bad outcome and a really, really good outcome. And so that is the idea with additional staff. The way that we do that is we would have the ability to have more staff on the street in different locations. And so having officers closer to each area, corners of the city, right, decreases that response time. We're not always coming from either one end or from the police department. We're able to station people out closer to where the calls are coming from.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there other questions? I have one. You mentioned the license plate recording.
Recognition.
And then I also saw something in the paper about a presentation about a plan to photograph everybody that comes into the city.
I'm not familiar with what plan you're referring to, sir.
They said they were going to set up cameras at the main entrances to the city and photograph every car that came in.
They would capture license plates.
So that was what they were doing. They were talking about capturing license plates.
Yes.
So then you capture and retain that data?
Yes, sir.
Is there money in this budget to do that?
Not currently, no.
Good. Okay. Other questions?
Chair Larson, the police department had an introductory conversation with the city council in a work session about that concept. And it was agreed much more discussion and further study before anything moved forward. And just to underline that answer, there's no money in the budget for it. It's a force multiplier, but it has a cost. So it's a complex equation.
Yeah.
Just exploring the feasibility at this point is all.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. And thank you, Captain Rollins, for the presentation. When you talk about like additional staffing needs, do you have like some specific requests or things that we could do? Because like I just can't believe we only have, for example, 1 code enforcement officer for the entire city. In addition to, that person has to serve the residents near the high school when they call on a daily basis with regard to the parking district, and then also go out and do every single other code violation investigation in the community. So that's one where it's like, I'd love to be able to see another FTE or 2 in that type of thing. So if you have any needs or requests.
I agree with you 100%. That would be one of the first places that I think we would place an additional FTE is to give Nicola some assistance and some help. She is 100% one of the busiest people at that police department. And there is more work there than one community service officer can handle. So I'd love to see a second one to be able to help her. We would love to see another traffic officer. Again, going back to traffic being the #1 complaint, right now we have 1 dedicated motorcycle officer to do traffic. All the other police officers can obviously perform traffic stops during the course of their work. But that's always dependent on calls for service and what else they're doing. To be able to have a second traffic officer would be fantastic. Quite frankly, we need to replace our second captain position as well. All the other agencies around us, they all operate with a one chief, two captain structure. Milwaukee has two captains, Cambia has two captains. Lake Oswego has a captain and 3 lieutenants, I believe. And so Chief Mahone and I have been running as a chief and solo captain for the last 5 years. And so to be able to spread out some of that administrative work would also be very helpful. And then just additional officers on the street, just additional patrol officers. What that would give us the ability to do is just be more nimble, be more flexible. As it sits right now, if we have someone who maybe gets injured or goes out on leave for an extended period of time, it makes it hard to fill those spots when you're always running so lean. So it would just give us more freedom. And again, that frees up more officers to go to better and more training because we're able to backfill those positions, more community outreach. It would be a huge win.
Thank you. And I appreciate what you've done with the BHU, the behavioral specialist as well. That's been a really good partnership with Lake Oswego.
Council President Baumgartner.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Acting Chief Mahone, Rollins. I really appreciate the way this department, as all the departments, as far as I can observe, spins straw into gold every day because of the shortage of man hours and manpower that you have and what you have to do. But I would love to see, if it's possible, some data about how this, for instance, the police department experiences the unmet needs that would be better met if we could give you more funding, whether it's FTE or whatever it might be. So that would help. I mean, I appreciate the layout of numbers, how many calls and, increases and various, but it doesn't tell me, what we weren't able to investigate because we just don't have enough people. That sort of would help me a lot. I don't know if there's a way to capture that information, but not right now.
Right.
But
Sure. No, I understand. And that would be, I hear what you're saying. That would be very valuable. Sometimes it's difficult to kind of show that negative or prove that negative piece about what may have gotten away or what have you. What I can tell you is what we would be able to do or what we would like to put those resources towards.
Okay.
And I think that that would kind of show what kind of results quite specifically. Every now and again, we'll have a neighborhood that gets hit with a lot of vehicle break-ins. Okay,
Mhm.
we've all seen that. To be able to have enough police officers to not sacrifice officers on the street, but take maybe a 2 or 3 person team, specialized team, to be able to pull them out to do like a specific mission in a specific neighborhood to look for those criminals who are coming in from out of the city, who are victimizing cars like that. That could be an opportunity where, can't guarantee it, but we would have a much greater chance of catching those types of crimes in the act if we were able to detach a couple police officers and say for the next week, all we're doing in unmarked vehicles is we are patrolling the streets at night, looking for cars that are rolling around, breaking into cars, right?
Right.
We just don't have the ability to do that right now because we just don't have the numbers. We have to focus on obviously staffing the road, the 911 calls for service. But that would just be an example, and we can work on different data for you going forward. But that would just be an example where we would have the ability to do that, be flexible and we'd be nimble. And I think that would kind of prove the results. That's just one area, one example.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Bonington.
Before I get to my question, I just want to say that I'm incredibly proud of the state of the department right now. And it is frankly world-class what you guys are doing. I would put you up against any department in the world.
Thank you.
And that professionalism is just through the roof. Regarding traffic enforcement, is there a technological solution that might be some sort of force multiplier outside of Flock? Are there any other solutions like that we haven't discussed?
There are jurisdictions in the metro area that have gone to tools like red light cameras. You would have to talk with some of the members of those city governments to ask them if they think that after they've had them for a number of years as to whether that endeavor is worth it. I think you'd get some varying opinions on that. As far as traffic enforcement goes, right? But that was speed trailers and red light cameras, I think are really the force multipliers that come to mind the most, that can capture violations as they happen and then possibly issue citations on top of them. The other, other things like with the speed trailers, I know Chief Mahon has looked at, and we would like to maybe invest in a couple newer speed trailers. And these are just the ones that sit by the side of the road that just remind you of your speed as you go by, just as a reminder that maybe you're over the speed limit. Things like that. Other calming devices, things that the city can look at to decrease things like speed but I think what you're thinking about for enforcement purposes would be cameras, red light and speed.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, I think we are on to the library. Thank you very much for your presentation.
How many librarians are coming to the front? I think all I have is name tag for Doug. We will welcome any and all of you up here. Glad to have them. And the library budget starts on page 54 of your binder.
Thank you for allowing us this time to talk to you about our library, and the things we're doing. I thought it was important to bring my two of my staff on my right, my assistant library director, Sarah Flathman, onto my left, my library manager, Rebecca Mayer, who take up the majority of our, together as a team, the planning, preparation, and ideas around what we do at the library. Whether you know this or not, I will express this. The library is an essential service. Why is it an essential service? Besides your police department, it's the only thing that you have staffed 7 days a week. When the city hall is closed, the library is open. When you want to get a library card, you can do it. Not other things, maybe you can't. So you've created this great, what I think, great, wonderful opportunity to have an essential service of the library where we provide services for all our community. And we do that because we have outstanding staff and we have outstanding support from our community. So some of the things that we're asking for that are slight adjustments are in our budgets for our materials and services, which are particularly for library materials, and also for some of our staffing. The other thing that you should know is we staff 3 desks every single minute we're open, which is over 58 hours a week. So you walk into the library on either floor, you go to the circulation desk, the reference desk, you go downstairs to the youth services desk, circulation desk, you'll see a person. You'll talk to that person. They'll be able to help you with whatever it is that you need. I think that is one of the most contributing factors that we have in creating this wonderful library that we all have and enjoy. So that costs money. We're appreciative of the library tax district that was established in 2008. We also know those resources are added to by the good people of the city of West Linn through our general fund. So we appreciate that as well. So you'll see small increases in those areas. But I think what you get in return and continue to get in return is we put on over 454 programs a year. That's over more than one a day that we have for our children, for our adults, online, virtually, every kind of place you can think of, we have something going on. There's something to do at the library. Our library of things, our library dogs, which are the only ones I think in the country that have them, which allows children to read Tales to Tales program, which is very, very popular. Our ability to provide a Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which is books for every child under the age of 5 in the city with no cost every month to them and to their homes. It's important that we focus on information literacy in our community. That early literacy is important in our community, and it's something that we take very seriously. We're in our schools every single day, for the most part. We have library returns in every single elementary school, every single middle school, and the high schools here in the city of West Lynn, so people can return their materials. We have library, hopefully some of you have used our book drops in 5 different areas across the city. So we're trying to give opportunities for people to return their items as well as bring them. We have library lockers. We could go on and on and on about the things we have. But I want to say, first off, we appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. We also appreciate the opportunity that you fund us. It's not always the case where libraries are thought of as important places in our community. We're thankful that City of West Lynn is one of those places that does. So I wanted to give a little time to both to Rebecca and to Sarah, not just to introduce them, but to have them also talk about some of the things that we're doing and aspiring to do.
Sure. I'll briefly, thank you. I'll briefly touch on some of our program highlights of the past biennium and things that we're hoping to continue. We had just had our 3rd Chill with a Chick week, essentially where we're incubating eggs at the library, we're live streaming them hatching, and then it all culminates with a 15-minute sign up time where folks can chill with a chick. We had over 275 people sign up to participate in this. In fact, we've even had to expand opportunities for adults to get to do it too, because we had initially imagined just for kids. The chicks got to go to the middle schools and take some field trips throughout the community. So it's just been a really wonderful, impactful activity that seems to bring a lot of joy to folks. When it comes to adult programming, we've really been experimenting. Our librarians are so creative. Speed friending has been a pretty popular new addition, just opportunities for adults to make connections and build new friendships in the community, especially post-COVID. Puzzle swaps have been incredibly popular. Folks can donate a gently used puzzle and also take a new one home. We've also been experimenting with active classes. Yoga and Tai Chi have been popular requests, and we've worked with the Adult Community Center to find presenters as well. We're always looking for new ways to attract folks to come into the library or to reach people where they are. We've really expanded our outreach efforts, going to Willamette, the Wednesdays in Willamette Summer Street Market, which is the photo you can see right here, Music in the Park, and the West Lynn Food Pantry. We go as well to promote our summer reading program and give out materials. Additionally, our homebound program continues to grow. We're dropping off materials at Roseland Care Center and Vintage Place, and we have a total of 19 folks enrolled to get private deliveries as well if they're unable to come in and visit the library. So we're hoping to continue to expand upon this programming we're doing and just find new ways to meet people where they are and further enrich the community.
Thank you, Sarah. Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the library manager, and most of my duties revolve around the circulation of materials, how the library keeps running, and of course the people who do it. One of my assigned tasks that I gave to myself was to check the comment card boxes every week to see what people have said. And for some reason, people are still putting print paper comment boxes. It's often little children saying, "Thank you so much for providing this for us." It's often families that come in and say, "Thank you so much. You helped us. These people are so kind." And I think the takeaway that I've gotten from getting to interact with the community is just how grateful they are that they have like a third place in our library. We're open as often as we can be. And we have that staff that are really passionate about serving the community and their needs. One thing a stat that I'm always finding kind of astounding, while like almost 80% of our checkout is done by self-checks, which would make you think that there was less need for staff, what happens is, and that gives our staff an opportunity to interact with patrons on a deeper level, because it's usually a more complicated situation than checking out a book. But conversely, those staff are handling over 30,000 materials each month, and making sure that people get those items as fast as they need for whatever the research or the entertainment, and it's amazing how much just those small interactions really impact our community.
So with that, we'd love to answer any questions that you might have, or anything that you'd like to talk to us about in regards to our library.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you all for the wonderful presentation and for all you do at the library. I think it's an amazing service. I used to go there all the time, used to study for the LSAT there, spent many hours in the library over the last few years. I want to ask about this circulation statistic. This is an amazing thing. 475,000 is the circulation. What does that mean? Is that 475,000 books?
Yeah, it's 475,000 library materials. So that could be a DVD, that could be a book on tape, that could be a physical book. It could be any of those things, library of things. So yeah, we service a lot of things that come in and out. And the also thing that's important to know is that we're in a cooperative with Clackamas County. So because of that, though we are run and a product of the city of West Lynn, we share all of our resources across the county. So we have courier services that come every morning at 4:30 to 5 a.m. and pick up the items that are going to other libraries and giving us the items that our people have asked for to put on hold. So that number is even larger when you think of the people that we loan to inside of Clackamas County as well. One of our objections, or one of our projections, and one of our goals is to be a net lender, which is the county does a really good job at trying to create that at zero. So the amount of books that your city is borrowing is equal to the amount of things that you're loaning. We're always a net lender, which is, we think, wonderful because it allows us, we have an expanse of things and items that people are interested in and are finding valuable, as well as we find things of value that across the county for our folks too that they want to use.
Thank you for that. And that 30,000 circulation per staff person, that's just amazing, the amount of work that is, just to picture that in what 30,000 books or DVDs look like in a room. I mean, that's amazing. So the only question I had is just about staffing levels and how the library feels like they're doing. I asked the same question to the police department. I know that, we're a short-staffed city in general. Haven't heard as much about the library having staffing challenges, but I know with things, for example, like the school district making cuts to their library program, well, then our city staff, student librarians have to go out and kind of supplement that. So do we have needs at the
That's a
library?
great question. We've talked a lot about that. With the school district, we've partnered with them so that we go into the schools with our outreach librarians. So we have them at every single grade level for our high school, our middle schools, and our elementary schools. And they're in there at least once a week. They're collecting the books that the children or the educators have brought back. We bring to them class sets and books that they have wanted, both as for the education side of it, that they're using for their experience. We haven't heard great things about what the expectation will be needed going forward. I shouldn't say great things. We haven't heard a lot of information about what's going to be needed next year. We do know that they've gone from, I think, to the level of 12 or 13 school librarians to about 3 or 4. So we know that cut is going to be huge. There's going to be none at the middle school, according to their projections. There'll be one at each of the high schools, and there will be a half-time person at each of the elementary schools, so primary schools. So we know it's going to impact us. And so what we're really, the three of us, as well as our children's services and our adult services. In fact, I think our whole library team, all of our employees are sitting around talking about this consciously, about how we can support. Because at the end of the day, they're all our children, they're all our residents, they're all our patrons, they're all part of our community. It's not necessarily an issue about who should or who shouldn't have done something. It's about how do we provide the best opportunities for everybody in our community. And that's the approach that we're taking. And we're hoping that we can find a solution. There's no way we're going to be able to bridge that gap. That's just physically and financially impossible. But we're going to try to look for key elements, working along with John and Alyssa, who are part of a bigger, John's part of a citywide, a Clackamas County Task Force talking about funding for libraries that we'll be working with him on. So there'll be a lot of time and effort. I'd like to think we will have positive outcomes. We will try to do the best that we can. I think we are better prepared. We also have to work about parity. So we are one of the only school districts, or this is one of the only school districts that shares 2 cities. School district has always been very conscious of the fact that what we do in West Lynn or what they do in Wilsonville is equal, right? So each student, no matter where they are, and as we know, there are Wilsonville kids that come to West Lynn schools and vice versa. So we try to create, and luckily we have a really great relationship with the city of Wilsonville and a really great relationship with their library director. He used to work with us at the city of West Lynn, and we're working on that parity so we can make sure that we have a commonality in the services that we can provide in the schools. So it is something that we're very concerned about, but it's also something that I think that we are spending a lot of good time on, and we will come up with the best possible answer and fiscally responsible response to this as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Oh, Counselor, or Committee Member Farber?
Just wanted to say that when I first set foot in West Lynn 10 years ago and walked into the library, I was astounded. And I lived in New York City, and there was nothing that could even touch West Lynn's library. The building is beautiful. And of course, I've benefited from, you didn't even mention Libby, the service that where I can load ebooks and get on a waiting list for the best sellers. And then of course, Canopy, which some people don't know about, where I just watch 2 movies from Canopy that every month I get quote unquote tickets that I can watch great movies, including from the Criterion collection. And they're just wonderful. And with my West Lynn library card, you talked about Clackamas. Well, I was able to also get a Multnomah County library card, and so I can borrow ebooks from that library too. It's phenomenal. It's just, between our public schools, our parks, and our library, they're gems. And, if you need more staff to also get into the schools, I think we should do whatever is possible to make sure that you've got the funding you need.
Thank you for your nice words.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, thank you again. We appreciate it. And then we'll move on to the most exciting fund, the debt service fund.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had some fun ones. Now it's time to eat your vegetables. Debt service funds on page 113, and Lauren is our resident expert.
So this is our fund that we use to pay for debt service on our general obligation bonds that are paid for through taxes, through property taxes, specific levy for the GO bond payments. And so as you can see, we are projecting to bring in property taxes for this account, and basically spending down a little bit of the fund balance. We don't want to run too high of a fund balance, but we do want to carry over some because we do have interest due early in December, and our property taxes generally don't come in until November. So we do want to carry over a little bit of a fund balance, but we don't need to keep a significant one in that fund. Currently, we only have 2 GO bonds that we're paying for. We are paying for the 2012 GO bond for the police station, and then the 2018 GO bond that for city facilities, parks, and transportation. And those are both 20-year bonds, so we have a little while left on both of them.
Are there questions on the debt service fund? Hearing none, non-departmental.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Non-departmental is page 76, 77, and Lauren and I will each do bits of this, I think, although we didn't plan it, but I'm sure it'll happen naturally and seamlessly. This is where there's a variety of things accounted for in here. They include requests from community organizations and partner organizations that the council has partnered with. Also includes some basic costs that the city experiences. So I'm just going to highlight a few, but you can ask Lauren and I questions about any of them, of course. The American Rescue Plan at the top was federal money that came during the pandemic and is all used and gone. We've talked about that in previous years. There is none proposed for the upcoming biennium. But that was a very vital contribution to our budget when it happened, and a very unusual item. I'd like to call out also the grant to the food pantry, which you'll see at $34,000 a year this year, next year, the year after. That is a pass-through grant from Clackamas County. Clackamas County made funds available to cities to identify what was the most pressing item in their community to help families, and we identified and the council approved a pass-through grant to the West Lynn Food Pantry, and we are very pleased to be able to have that. So just noting that $34,000 a year is not actually city money. You've heard earlier in the meeting about a request from the Historic Willamette Main Street Group. That's the next line item. The way we represented in this budget, as you heard from them, is a straight line from this fiscal year. And you've heard a request and may want to talk more about that. I mentioned insurance in my overview earlier. Insurance costs are up. This is where we budget for all of those costs. And you can see it's a significant increase, and it really is not mostly because of any actions that we have done. We've been pretty responsible recently, and it's just the pool is costing more all the time. League of Oregon Cities is a membership that the city has. It's a calculation that they provide based on per capita. Miscellaneous, the sharp-eyed readers may have noticed a massive miscellaneous cost in the budget of $2.4 million in that middle column. That was a typo. It was actually $50,000. So we will make sure that is corrected, and it affects obviously the rest of the numbers in that column as well. 2 years ago, when we were working on the budget, there was discussion about neighborhood association funding. We had proposed to just continue the existing funding to neighborhood associations. Those are provided based on size in different categories to the individual neighborhood associations if they meet some minimum criteria for meeting and carrying out their functions. The last two organizations under materials and services in miscellaneous is the Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition and the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. These are organizations that the council has a formal partnership with, and we have proposed, as a result, continuing the allocations to those groups as they are in this fiscal year. Lauren has already talked about debt service. Okay, yes, thank you. Actually, this is one that I want to highlight. Thank you, Lauren. In the miscellaneous column, in the upcoming budget year, some of you may remember that we have been periodically doing a community survey, like many other communities. The last time it was done by Polco, that was 3 years ago already, and in 2022. And we are proposing to do it again. We contemplated doing it every other year. We are recommending every third year, but it is a conversation that I think worth having with the council and budget committee, whether this is an expenditure and a program that you want to continue. Many cities do this to provide a baseline understanding in a scientifically sound method of what is it that the community members value, need, dislike, like about their communities. And we partner with a company called Polco, which does this nationally, so that we're able to evaluate ourselves against a benchmark of similar cities, hundreds of cities across the United States. So that is a roughly $30,000 expense posed in fiscal year 26 in that miscellaneous column, and then just back to baseline after that. Lauren, anything else on this page? There was a request from the Westland Chamber of Commerce. Should you choose to grant that request, which was not reflected in here, this would also be included in non-departmental, just like the other partner organizations, if you choose to do that. So I think that's it for this page, and this is the last budget that we thought to present to you this evening, and then take a break until Thursday.
And then I'll just say for the debt service, those are debt services on full faith and credit obligations that are paid for out of the general fund. Some of them are paid for in multiple funds, but these are the ones that are directly for the general fund, that offsetting the new one that we're expecting for the operations center, and then one from 2015 refunding that we're still paying on. And then, as we mentioned before, in the revenue section, there was the revenue for subscription-based IT agreements and leases, and then this is the debt service on those, so the annual payments for those, which is a little strange since they're in non-departmental and not in the department like IT. So it's a little bit different than previously, but, and then you'll see the transfers to other funds. We were subsidizing some other funds throughout the years with transfers to them. They were the funds that we have moved into the general fund, so we no longer have to subsidize those, which means we don't have any more of those.
And regarding the Operations Center, our thought is to present more information to you about the status of that and the costs of that at the next meeting. And then if needed, we can obviously circle back to this page, which does have some touch on that.
Are there questions from the committee members? Yes. Oh. Go ahead, Abby.
Just to prove I'm also not sleeping back here. So I wanted to check, because I know we're talking about the grants at the third meeting that we're having. But for example, where it says grant to Main Street here, is that included in those grants that Lauren, you emailed to us, where we see Historic Willamette, a Main Street community, as well as I see two actual listings. I see Historic Willamette, a Main Street community, and Historic Willamette Main Street. Is that also grant to Main Street?
So the first item that you're referring to is the line item that's about 4 down, other community grants. That's the 25,000 that we are talking about on Monday. The budget committee citizen members will be talking about that on Monday. That does include a couple requests from the Historic Willamette Main Street, but that is separate from the grant to Main Street that the Main Street organization asked about or chatted about today. So that is a separate 40,000 from the 25 that we're allocating across all community grants.
So there's two things in the package that you sent us earlier. There's two things listed as Historic Willamette, a Main Street. Another thing that says Historic Willamette, a Main Street community, and then something listed here at 26,000 other grant to Main Street, which I don't have anything about. So now I'm totally confused.
Is it okay?
Well, so there's a couple of things going on here. There's the community grant program, which requests have been made. They have several different legal organizations due to tax law. And so you may be talking about requests from the different organizations. And so if we're talking about those community grant requests, I think we would wait until that meeting to handle it. But what I was going to say to the committee, obviously we have our 4 folks who talked at the very beginning of the meeting and waited patiently for a couple of hours. If you do have requests for more information for them or want to cover that topic now, or you want to tell them to come back for a different meeting, or just to point that last piece out. Abby, does that answer the question you had?
So my question is, there's a line item in the non-departmental budget that says grant to Main Street. Is that separate from the community grants that we're looking at in this list here, I would say on page 76 or 77?
Yeah, sorry if I didn't answer that clearly enough, but yes, the community grants are separate from the requests that the Main Street organization was talking about earlier in the meeting. They have submitted for community grants under that program, and they have requested a separate grant. And you can see that one has been in existence for some time at different numbers going back, at least as far as by 22.
Okay, so there's a Main Street organization separate that's getting, it looks like for the biennial budget that's listed at 80,000, so 40 each of 2 years.
That's correct.
Isn't related to Historic Willamette, a Main Street community.
It is related. The grant to Main Street in the left-hand column under materials and services is a shorthand for the formal name of the organization.
Okay. And I don't want to make people sit here longer than possible, but is there some way of understanding how these 3 allocations to these somehow related organizations are different endeavors?
Yes, their community grant requests were for specific program items. And you heard earlier this evening that the main use of the funding for the one on this page, non-departmental grant to
Right.
Main Street, would be for
Right.
staffing of the organization.
Okay, so this is what they were talking about with the executive director.
Correct.
Okay, and then the other ones, which we're going to talk about later, are for
Yeah.
separate, and I haven't read them yet, but they're for separate things. I don't know, my little antennae went up when I said, wait a minute, I've seen
Sure,
two
I
others
understand.
from them. Okay, thank you for explaining that. Because my tiny little brain was confused.
Are there other questions on the non-departmental? I have one quick question. Did the city ever issue PERS bonds for the unfunded liability?
No, we did not.
Okay. Yes, Committee Member Frazier.
Thank you. I'm not sure that I understand whether we are going to be discussing the items in this particular non-departmental budget tonight, or if we're going to discuss them on Thursday night. But it seems like there's some discussion points maybe we have to look at. Like, how do we respond to some of the additional requests? And if we're going to up something, we're going to have to produce something else. So there's a potential for some serious discussion here, but I don't know if we're going to do it now or later. That's my question.
So that's a decision that the committee needs to make. It's 8:45, and we can have, I mean, this would be the time to discuss it, but we have gone over our 2 hours that we budgeted for the meeting. So we can either choose to stay and discuss it, or we can carry that over and discuss it at the start of the meeting. Is there any feeling one way or another people want to get wrapped up for the night, or they want to stick it out and go through it? How many people would rather wrap it up for the night? See, I'm seeing about half and half. Okay, so, yes, go ahead.
I think this is going to require some thought. I don't think I can take a look at all these numbers and come up with anything rational without looking at it carefully and weighing the arguments and the presentations that we've heard tonight and trying to come up with something cogent, something intelligent. And I don't think I'm going to be doing this at this time of night in the next 10 minutes. That's my opinion.
Okay, so it's been suggested that we carry this over to the next meeting, and unless there's an objection to that, I'm going to say that we're going to go with that. Is there any objection? Okay. So we will adjourn and we'll carry over, and maybe we can, go ahead.
Just before you adjourn, I just wanted, could you tell us the amount of the Chamber of Commerce requests, just so we can think about that?
I believe it was 75,000 a year.
75,000 a year for that. Okay, and that's not,
That's not in here at all.
that was not, we have not previously funded that organization before.
No, so it wasn't in here because I think the request came after we had already drafted this. So
And then this is just a question for you as the finance director, like, are there solutions here to be able to afford these sorts of things? Or anything we should be thinking about as we go into the next couple of days? What should we be thinking about from the city financial perspective?
I think the biggest thing to focus on, and we haven't really gotten to this part of it, but in our 5-year forecast, we are looking at a very large deficit coming up in the next biennium. So anything we add additionally to this budget adds additional to the deficit and makes our next time a little bit more challenging. I would highly recommend, if we were going to fund anything additional, that we take it out of somewhere else. And that is up to the committee to decide. I think that this budget is fairly lean, so it would be pretty challenging to take a lot out of any area in particular, but I'm sure we could we could discuss that and figure something out if we needed to. But again, this is a fairly lean budget, and we are looking at a very large deficit for the next biennium.
So, yes, Ms. Fraser?
It's Farber. It's Abby again. Did anyone from the Chamber of Commerce show up tonight? That wasn't the people who were here early. That was the Main Street Westland people, or was that the Chamber of Commerce people? I'm sorry, I'm getting confused now.
No, there was no one from the chamber here this evening. I'm not sure if they're planning on coming on Thursday.
Okay, so they just sort of handed it to us, but they're not coming.
Committee Member Fraser.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it might be helpful between now and Thursday, whether Lauren could perhaps suggest some places where some cuts might be made in other areas. I mean, it may not be possible, I understand that, but we don't know how to go through this budget and say, cut here, or, 10,000 here and 5,000 somewhere else to make some of these other things possible in this non-departmental budget. I'm wondering if it's possible for us to get a little bit more information before we meet again.
I can try to get some, again, I think this budget is very lean, so I don't know how many recommendations I would have in areas to cut. I think realistically, if we're cutting anywhere, we would have to either cut staffing or we would have to cut some form of materials and services, so some type of program in general. So the budget that everything that we've talked about this evening is funded at a pretty low level. Not anything, there's not a lot of extra padding in there. We could, of course, I think the materials and services in this non-departmental is probably the most flex we have. And so there's always a discussion of if we want to change around this area. But again, I can try to make some recommendations.
Well, yeah, I mean, cities do this in different ways, right? Organizations that you've been a part of, if you want to find some money for a thing, sometimes you'll tell organizations to take 2% off the top everywhere, right? That's an approach. There's individual programs or projects that we could look at. For example, our proposed budget has a 25,000 or so community survey that I just mentioned raised as a question. That's a place, we could decide not to do that survey and reorganize the money. It does get pretty fast into people and programs, right? In the rest of the budget. And so even though, the irony of this is the requests you're hearing are a small percentage of this organization's budget, right? This is a $140 million 2-year budget. But a lot of it is set aside for particular uses that you can't use to fund these requests. And most of the general fund departments really it's a heavy percentage of personnel in those departments. And the materials and services needed to train them, staff them, and buy the paper clips. And so I think we would need some policy direction on what areas are we looking to do less of in the future.
Councillor Brike?
And we're being asked by the community to do more of everything.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda is to announce the time of our next meeting, which is 6 o'clock on Thursday. And I was going to ask the staff if it's possible that we could have this discussion about the non-departmental at the beginning of the meeting when our brains are a little fresher. And then we can be through with that and then move on to the agenda as you laid it out.
I believe we have on the top of the agenda continuation of the previous meeting, so that would be perfect.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the?
If I may say,
Yes.
I think the other logic to that is then you would be diving into the enterprise funds, utility funds, right?
Mhm,
So this really would put the capstone on your general fund discussion. And there may be other things about the general fund that you reflect on for a couple of days. You want to come back and talk about it. So you could do that, and then we dive into the dedicated funds. It makes sense to me.
Excellent point. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank the people from Historical Alignment Main Street for staying, being with us. I just want you to know, I value so much what you all do for our city. Rebecca, you're a tremendous asset. And so we're going to do a lot of thinking and see what we can do. It just, as you know, tough budgetary times, but at the same time, we hear you and we'll hope, I'm sure you'll probably be back on Thursday to hear what we can come up with, but you heard us talking about it. And just wanted to acknowledge you all and thank you for what you do.
Yes, Abby.
So I'll show up because obviously it doesn't work real well when I'm not sitting there. I apologize to everyone. Could we also put at the top of the list consideration of this proposed $75,000 proposal from the Chamber of Commerce? Because I guess that would come out of non-departmental, or would it come out? It's not a grant proposal.
Yes, that would come under the non-departmental too. So we will add that to the
Thank you.
agenda as well.
Thank you.
Other comments for the good of the order? Thank you all for your time tonight.